So if you have seen any of our other webcasts and heard me talking about the concerts with the Arizona Music Fest Festival Orchestra for this season, you might know already that we are embarking on a bit of a tour of nations. Our opening concert on Tuesday, February 18th was focused on music from the British Isles. Our concert on Thursday night, February the 20th, moves to an entirely different land, that of Russia, featuring the works of three immense composers, Sergei Prokofiev, Sergei Rachmaninoff, and Modest Mussorgsky. The concert opens with a work called the Classical Symphony of Sergei Prokofiev. Prokofiev, the great Russian Soviet composer, and I use those two words together on purpose. You see, Sergei Prokofiev was born in the late 19th century and was old enough to already be somewhat of a force in music during the time of the Tsars, during the older Russian nobility era. But of course, then he lived through the Russian Revolution. He lived until 1953, and the greater part of the end of his life was composing under that unique pressure of Soviet Politburo and the approach they took to trying to control art. The symphony that you hear on this concert, the Classical Symphony, was written just at the moment of revolution, 1917 to 1919. So just when there was a great amount of strife happening in Russia, and of course also in the world. This is when World War I was going on. Many composers during this time made a decision to begin writing for smaller forces. One of the honest reasons is that so many men were off fighting in war, they had fewer musicians to play their works. Stravinsky did this, Prokofiev did this. It became known as the neoclassical era because as the composers had smaller forces, they began to harken back to an earlier style and begin to write in the style of Mozart, Haydn, early Beethoven. This is exactly what Prokofiev did with the Classical Symphony. He said as much. He said that he wanted to write a piece in 1917 that would sound like what Haydn would have written if Haydn were alive at that time. He doesn't quote Haydn. There are no actual Haydn motifs, but I think when you hear the piece, it's this wonderful, happy, elegant, buoyant style of writing that sounds very classical indeed. But don't be fooled by this wonderful effervescence. If you pay close attention to the orchestra, you'll see also that this is one of the most technically and virtuosically demanding works in all of the repertory. Next on the program, after the Prokofiev, we have another Sergei, this time Sergei Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. Rachmaninoff, one of the greatest pianists and composers for the piano that we've ever seen in all of music history. And I think therefore it's fitting that we have playing this work somewhat of a double threat, actually triple threat himself. You see, our soloist, Konrad Tao, is one of the world's most hailed pianists playing today. In fact, just this year he plays with the Detroit Symphony, the Philadelphia Orchestra, the San Francisco Symphony, the Dallas Symphony. He makes his recital at Carnegie Hall, and on and on. Konrad is at the ripe age of 19, becoming one of the most beloved pianists in the world. He also is a phenomenal composer, having won Morton Gould ASCAP Awards the last multiple years in a row, and he's also a world-class violinist. You do not want to miss seeing and hearing this tremendous pianist play with the orchestra. The Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto is one of the most well-known and beloved in the repertory. One thing I find interesting, if you'd like to connect to this piece with a bit of a modern twist, you might enjoy knowing that the pop singer Eric Carmen in the 1970s had a fascination with Rachmaninoff, and in fact his two biggest hits were based on Rachmaninoff themes. One, Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, he stole that theme from the Rachmaninoff Second Symphony, and the other song, All by Myself, he took verbatim from the slow movement of the Second Piano Concerto, which you will hear on this concert. In the late 19th century, one of the great Russian composers was a man named Modest Mussorgsky. Mussorgsky was first and foremost a pianist, but also became an incredible composer. He was so saddened when he learned of the death of a prominent artist, Victor Hartmann, and he helped to arrange with other friends an exhibition of the art of his friend Victor Hartmann. After this exhibition took place, Mussorgsky sat at the piano and he began to write a piano work called Pictures at an Exhibition to memorialize in music this event. that work for piano has become one of the most cherished works for pianists that we have in the repertory. Even more so, it's become a challenge and an opportunity for other composers to orchestrate this work and to see how the many colors that Mussorgsky gave just for the piano can be fleshed out for a full orchestra. The most popular of those orchestrations was actually penned by the French composer Maurice Ravel. So even though we have a Russian landscape, there's a bit of a French accent in this final piece. Pictures at an Exhibition is anchored by a promenade theme. This theme is heard at the very beginning of the work, and then you will hear it come back again and again as it indicates the person observing the paintings, moving from painting to painting, and walking through the great gallery space. In between the promenades are the paintings themselves, and the musical depiction of the various paintings is just spot on. I think without even seeing the work of art, the visual work of art, if you know that you are hearing music to represent a ballet of chicks in their shells, or children playing in the Tuileries garden, for example, the music will tell you all that you need to know. The ending, the final painting, which actually was a sketch that Victor Hartmann made for a gate in Kiev, the Great Gate of Kiev, is about the most powerful moment in all of music. Trip to Russia, Prokofiev, Rachmaninoff, Mussorgsky. See you at the concert.